Today we are going to talk about CS and PS, top government officials from Kenya that have been banned from traveling abroad. Foreign travel suspended for outgoing cabinet secretaries and permanent secretaries. Now, Joseph Kinyua, head of public service, issued a circular dated 19th September 2022, and this circular was issued on Monday the 19th. This circular effectively banned senior government officials from traveling abroad for whatever reason. So it is something that is to think about. The outgoing leaders, top government officials, cabinet secretaries, and permanent secretaries, their work effectively will come to an end immediately a new team is sworn in. The head of public service said in the circular that these people, the top government officials, the CS and PS and other top government officials, will not travel outside the country until they hand over their dockets to the new incoming officials. Now, he gave one reason for banning them to travel outside, for prohibiting them from traveling outside. The reason he gave was to facilitate the fourth administration to take over, to facilitate transition from the fourth administration to the fifth administration, which is still in progress. And he went further and added that ministerial actions, activities during this time were confined to general management and stewardship only. The ministers and anyone senior in the ministry, in these ministries, any given ministry, is not allowed to do the following in addition from being banned from traveling outside. Now, what are the activities that they are not allowed to do? Number one is cabinet secretaries are not allowed to make any appointments of members of board management of state agencies or corporations. They cannot appoint any new official. Number two is cabinet secretaries are, as authorized officers, shall not cause and or effect any ministerial redeployments or any new appointments in any ranks within ministries and state departments. Number three, ministers and state departments and agencies are prevented from issuing any new policy pronouncements unless sanctioned by President Ruto. Number four, the departments and ministries are also not allowed to carry out any payments exceeding 50 million Kenya shillings without prior approval and verification by the National Treasury. No payments above 50 million is allowed to be authorized. Now, considering all these limitations placed upon these outgoing government officials, what do you think we can learn from this circular? Number one, I believe this is a question of accountability, which simply means what you have done while you are in charge of any given docket, you will be answerable. If you remember very well, just recently, Fred Matiangi prevented Dr. Ruto from traveling to Uganda. And now, Matiangi, who is the Cabinet Secretary of Interior, cannot travel outside the country unless authorized by the president. This shows what goes around comes around quickly. Apart from that, there are allegations of corruption, misappropriation of public funds, looting of public lands, impunity, and gross misconduct. When we talk about public land, what comes to your mind? You can guess what comes to your mind when we talk about public land. And this land has been mentioned several times by different government bodies. Ruaraka land scandal. And you can guess who was behind it. Now, this is something that Fred Matiangi will answer. This particular directive directly affects 4 individuals, and these 4 individuals in the social media streets are known as $4 billionaires. I don't need to mention them. You know them. The other lesson we learn is, before we go to the other lesson we learn, a lot of money was lost during campaigns, 2022 campaigns. There was a report circulating around that estimated the money spent on campaigns at State House in the last 2 months before elections was around 1.2 billion Kenya shillings. And remember, this money was not authorized by the parliament. So someone somewhere will account for this money. Those who authorized these monies to be spent without approval from parliament or involvement of parliament will be required to account for the funds. And that is why these officials cannot travel outside the country before they hand over their respective dockets. You must know that there are 2 methods of fighting. If you have to fight anyone, there are 2 ways of fighting. One way is to use the law to fight in courts. This is normally practiced or normally used in civilized societies where men engage in court battles. If you do not have evidence or know-how to fight your battles in court, then you use the second method, which is crude violence. I mean, by force. You have to use force to make sure what you want happens. And this is where normally it catches up with you. You only use this method if you know ultimately you will emerge the victor. Otherwise, never attempt to use force if you are not sure of victory. Just remember this. Keep in mind that what goes around comes around. Now, of all the people who have been mentioned in whatever, outlet, there are 2 people whose names come up. Fred Matiangi and KIBICHO. They stand out from the crowd because they did things. They tried to prevent actively. They took active part in preventing Dr. Ruto from ascending to the presidency. This is something in the public domain. Matiangi prevented Ruto from traveling, and this caused embarrassment to Ruto. Dr. Matiangi prevented Ruto from traveling to Uganda. Ruto traveling to Uganda. Imagine a CS cabinet secretary preventing deputy president from traveling to a neighboring country. So it has caught up with him. Amongst the many issues that will fix Matiangi now is the Ruaraka land saga. But personally, I am not sure what will fix KIBICHO. I don't know what you think. Please drop down your comments below. Thank you.